Hello friends, welcome from Seco Simply. Today we are going to talk about the new education policy 2020 which has been recently approved by Ministry of Human Resource Development, that is MHRD. So there are a lot of questions about this policy in everyone's mind, like what has the policy brought for the school education or higher education, what does this policy mean for the teachers, and overall what is this policy about and what are the changes in this new education policy, that we are going to discuss point by point in detail. So stay with us. So first of all, let us understand why do we need it, like what was the requirement of this new education policy 2020. Because there were certain problems in the current education system. So first is, our current education is not efficient in getting us job, because you might have seen people around yourself that they have higher education, they have good degrees like MA, BA, engineering, etc., but still they are struggling to get jobs in their life. Also, our system is too exam centric. What I mean is, like, you study for a whole year and prepare for exam, and that particular day, if you are not okay, or something goes wrong, then you are gone for one whole year. You have to wait for the next examination, so you have to suffer for whole year. So this exam means a lot in our current education system. There is too much of commercialization and corruption, because there are institutions taking huge money from the students and giving degrees without any basic, even a basic knowledge to their students, right? So this also leading to corruption, because same degree holders come into jobs and they are not able to perform well. So there is a huge problem in terms of getting a good student or good candidate through the current education system for the jobs. We also lack practical knowledge, because most of our exams are based on theoretical papers, like we solve question papers and there is a lot of theory that we deal with, but we hardly know how to apply our knowledge, right? Our education system also doesn't train us to work with our hands. What I mean is, suppose something is there which you can repair in your own hand. Suppose you learn electricity in your science books, but do we understand the electronic gadgets in our own houses? Are we able to solve the real life problems using the book knowledge that we have? There is little connection between what we have studied and what you are working as. Means there are a lot of engineers who enter into MBA because engineering might not offer them good jobs, but after MBA they might enter into marketing sector or something like that. There are a lot of MAs I have seen, like they literally have to apply for government jobs at the post of peon. So whatever we have mastered or we have gone through our degrees, we are hardly able to apply in our own jobs, and through them we are hardly getting jobs through them. And suppose you go to the school level education, what is happening? Kids can't even do the basic maths or write alphabets or read simple words. Then creative writing is a far goal to reach, because what is happening, one standard by other standard, kids are getting pushed into next. But when they grow up, like they cross their 10th standard or 12th standard, there is a huge problem in terms of they are not able to write or think or solve basic things. There are hard compartments between arts, science and commerce. So what happens, suppose if I choose science in 11th or 12th and I don't like all the subjects, suppose I like physics, chemistry and I don't like maths or bio, and I want to take some other subjects, I am interested in geography or history, I'm not able to take it, because if I go to science stream I only have to take the fixed number of subjects which the course offers. Suppose somebody is good at commerce but also like physics, that person can't take that subject when that person or that student enter into commerce stream or art stream, same thing. So these are very hard compartments, so we can't choose the subjects that we like once we choose a stream. Very fundamental reason why this policy has also come is because the last policy was brought in 1986, and it was reformed a bit in 1992. But what had happened, huge technological change or huge technological revolution has taken place afterwards, like computer, laptops, mobile, all the online kind of platforms, and so on. Even the instrument wise, there are huge technological change which is hardly integrated in the current education system. We still deal with the book or notebook. I'm not saying that there is wrong in this, but still the technology integration has to happen, and the policy has to also consider about these aspects. So in general, I'll just give a little glimpse of a comparison between the old policy and the new policy in this particular picture. So before this new education policy 2020, how was our system? Is 10 plus 2 plus 3, like 10 standard was the major evaluation, right, means board exams, and then 12 standard, and then 3 years degree course or something like that. But now the structure is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. I'm going to discuss this particular formation or this pattern in very detail in our talk. Also, the old education system was mostly bookish, and the current one is going to be skill oriented. So there is going to be huge changes in the syllabus or the curriculum and the mode of evaluation, everything. Compartmentalization was the problem, like as I said, like science, commerce, or engineering and humanities, like social sciences, they were all separated from each other. Suppose you learn social science, then you can't learn science or any other subject from science. So there were hard boundaries in between all these streams. But in the current new policy, there is a freedom to mix and match your subjects whichever you like, and you can take that particular course. While recruiting the teachers, there was, in private institutions or most of we don't know like how they were chosen or what kind of degrees they have, because different kind of institution will have different parameters. But now this teachers recruitment is going to be very transparent, and there is going to be a nationwide standards and requirements for the teachers to get, and then they are able to get the jobs. That is how it is going to be. The old policy or the old system was a bit restrictive. It means that when you enter into any course, and suppose after it's a 4 years or 3 years course, and after 2 years suppose you are not able to focus, or because of some reason you give up on that particular course, then what happens, that degree has gone, you don't have any benefit out of it. But now what this policy has given an opportunity of multiple entry and exit. Suppose for 2 years you do one type of course, you will get the credit, you will get the due certificate for that course, and with that credit or with those marks you are capable to enter into other courses. So in multiple ways you can enter a course or you exit a course, and you will get something out of it. It is not going to be like once you drop out a course or you stop or you change, then your old thing has gone. Suppose 2 years I do engineering, and there is a 2 years of gap, then initial policy used to force me to do all the credits or all the courses from beginning, because they don't consider the previous record of the courses which I have done. But this is not going to be in this particular policy. This aspect also we will discuss in detail. So let us go step by step and understand that this policy is considering as education for all. So what I mean is, initial right to education policy included only kids aging from 5 years to 14 years age group, but now it includes 3 to 18 years. Means there is a focus starting from nursery education of the kid, which the kid starts at 3-year-old, and this is going to be part of right to education policy, and government will invest money into it. Education in mother tongue till class 5 is allowed, because generally kid till it becomes 5 years old, it is comfortable in its own mother tongue. So and other two languages, or a trilingual system, or since the kid can grasp more languages, so more number of languages will be introduced till the kid is in first standard, or in nursery, first standard and second standard, so that they grasp and learn more number of languages. But how this particular mother tongue thing will be included in the English medium school, that is a question, and with due course of time we will understand how they are incorporating this particular change. This particular policy targets to include the school dropouts and try to make an inclusive structure, so that suppose a kid has dropped out education, then at suitable age, at suitable standard, that kid is allowed to enter, and also there will be a focus to make them kids as a mainstream, to bring them back into mainstream. So first understand what is this 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure. So this is based on the age of the child, not the standard which you are in. Like it is not 5th standard and then plus 3 means 8th standard. It is not like that. It is age group wise, it is categorized. So first 5 years it's considered as a foundational stage, where when the kid is is in the 3rd year, then it goes to pre-primary school like nursery group or KG. Then at 4th year it goes to 1st standard, and then 2nd standard when the child is 5-year-old, right? So this is a foundational stage where the child will be introduced to different languages and basic reading and writing skill, and it will be involved in different creative activities, etc. So there will be evaluation what skills or what kind of level that kid has reached when the child is in the 5th year. The next 3 years, when the child goes to class 3, 4 and 5, it is going to be preparatory, means the kid will be introduced to different subjects and kind of a formal education system. Next 3 years is class 6 to 8, so it's a middle stage. And then next 4 years is a secondary stage, that is class 9 to 12. It is going to be considered as one stage. So old pattern was like from class 1 to 10th direct, and then next levels were class 11th and 12th. This particular structure says that there will be 4 levels of evaluation and different types of curriculum that will be introduced these kids, and they will be evaluated. So there are 4 levels, so pre-primary and plus class 1 and class 2 level, then class 3 to 5, then class 6 to 8, and then class 9 to 12. Very important here is the rigid compartments in science and arts and commerce are not to be done by schools. So when like in class from class 9 to 12, whenever you choose a subject, particularly when you enter 11th and 12th, nobody will be able to say that I am a science student, or I am from commerce background, or I am from arts background. No, because you can mix and match the subjects, and so even in 11th and 12th there will be no difference, different compartments or different kind of streams made by the schools. There will be no difference in the main curricular or extracurricular subjects. For example, we do craft or drawing or music or something like that. Those subjects are considered as extracurricular activities, including sports. They have some kind of value in the curriculum, but they are not the main curricular subject, because all the focus is given on the subjects that we study and write exams upon. So it is not going to be there. All the subjects will have equal importance, let it be music, let it be drawing, or let it be craft or sports, and so on. So it's a good thing that these things, when like suppose somebody is interested in drawing and doesn't focus much on the other subject, then generally parents scold them that why are you not studying, why are you not studying. So other subjects, these subjects which I am talking about, when you are doing this, then they are not considered as that you are studying it or you are practicing drawing. No, it's like extracurricular activity that you are doing. And that's why, you know, most of the parents discourage their kids from entering into this extracurricular activity, which is not good overall. And this particular issue has been addressed in the current policy. What about the board exams? So there are a lot of questions. Somebody says that there is no board, or 10th board is cancelled or something like that, or there is no board exams. But let us understand, board exams will be continued, but they will be easier. So the current pattern is like you have so many questions and you have to write 3 hours of, you know, question paper you have to solve. It is not going to be there. Tasting only based upon core capacities of the students are going to be there. So if you are mugging up any subjects and trying to crack any exams, then it is going to be difficult for those students, because you really have to develop your capacities to understand that particular subject. Board exams may evolve as annual, semester or modular type, because this was important, because the annual pattern of the board exams would make the students suffer for a whole year if they are not able to pass particular exams, or because of not passing one particular subject they have to wait for a whole year to enter the new course. But there will be yearly 2 times if these particular board exams are conducted, mostly in university level or something like that. It is going to benefit the students so that they will continue their education and there will be no break applied because of the failing or otherwise circumstances. There are 2 parts in the exams. So paper will have objective and descriptive type questions, so that they will evaluate you properly on the basis of this kind of paper pattern. So paper pattern is also going to change. High quality aptitude test are going to be conducted by this NTA, that is National Testing Agency, twice a year, so that the students will be able to crack the university entrance exams. So only this NTA will conduct all types of entrance exams. So each university when initially used to conduct their separate exams, but all the exams are going to come under NTA. Now what for higher education? I spoke about what the policy has brought changes in the school level or pre-primary level, what kind of changes are there. Let us understand what has changed in the higher education. So as I mentioned earlier, there are multiple entry and exit allowed in higher education now, and also very important aspect it has brought is credit transfer. So suppose you complete a course for 2 years and then stop or change to other course, then whatever courses that you have studied and whatever marks that you have obtained, those will be accounted, those will be considered when you enter into any other course, or if you continue the course after some time. So your credits or whatever marks that you have obtained once will be accounted as a, you know, there are going to be a credit bank, very clearly I am saying, so that whatever marks, credit means marks, those will not be lost when you enter or exit any course. Very important thing that initially the PhD or research level examinations was monitored by UGC. Then AICT was monitoring the technological education like engineering degrees. Then this NCT was monitoring teachers education and their degrees. So different regulatory bodies were there, so that they would conduct exams on their own and then offer degrees, or they had different standards or something like that. But now there will be one regulatory board to monitor all the education system and the degrees and the exams, that is HECI, that is Higher Education Council of India. It is going to monitor and regulate all kind of education. You can mix and match subjects in higher education, so that when you enter science or you are doing BSc, still you can take some subjects from humanities like social science. You can choose history, geography, etc. So still you will get that particular degree, and you will have freedom to make your own combination. Very important change is here, that is UG degree, that is undergraduate degrees are going to be 4 years. If you want to go straight into research after your degree, the colleges can give options that if you, after 3 years, if you want to separately enter into master degree course or PG level degree course, postgraduate course, then you can do 3 years of degree and get separate master degree for 1 or 2 years, etc. Now what for teachers? So the system has brought major changes in for the teaching profession. So minimum educational qualification for teachers is 4 years integrated B.Ed, very essential to know. So after 12th, if you want to enter into education field, then you will have 4-year integrated degree in education. Suppose you have any specialized degree from any other subject, suppose you have BSc or say BCom or BA, then you are allowed to take 2 years B.Ed and you can pursue teaching profession. There will be continuous professional development once you enter the job. So your development is also very important, because once you become teacher and you are developing students, then you also need to be updated. So this development will be carried out by conducting number of workshops, and online teacher development modules are going to be there for the development of teachers. This is very important that master instructors will be allowed to enter into educational programs, or they can become teacher to teach local art, music, business, sports, carpentry, etc. Suppose you know these things, and suppose somebody has the skills and want to become teacher, then these people will be allowed through a training under short educational programs. They can get those kind of trainings, and then they can become teacher of that particular skill or knowledge that they have. To promote teachers from rural areas, so that they join B.Ed and then they go back to their rural areas and start teaching, for those people merit based scholarships will be given to study B.Ed, so that good merit will come and then they will get B.Ed and they can go back to rural areas and teach. Suppose somebody wants to enter at university level and teach, then if you have B.Ed and you are teaching in school, you can do post B.Ed certification course and you can go to university level to teach. Nowadays, teachers are also supposed to develop a good content, online content. So they will be trained through online teaching platform, and they will be introduced different tools so that they can become a high quality online content creator. They can themselves create good videos, good lectures. They can on their own, they can record and they can propagate to different areas, and they can reach out more number of students through technology. So emphasis will be given on teacher's role in facilitating active student engagements, how the teacher is capable in engaging the students even through online platform. Are you able to communicate to the students? That will be emphasized when these trainings will be conducted for the teachers. Technology platforms such as Swayam or Diksha will be introduced or will be used for training the teachers and making them eligible to develop the online content. The other major changes are HRD. The name of this particular ministry is going to be changed and it will be called as Ministry of Education. National Education Technology Forum will be created. MPhil, which was the Master of Philosophy, this degree is discontinued, maybe because lot of MPhil, though they have a master degree, they were not considered neither in teaching jobs or different kind of higher jobs. So this degree maybe has got redundant and it has been discontinued. So there will be no further enrollment into this particular degree course. The government targets to spend 6% of GDP on education, but they also talk about increasing public investment. So does this mean that our fees will be increased or there will be no free education? That is a bit ambiguous to me. 100 foreign colleges to open branch in India. Norms will be on par with the Indian institutes. This will, kind of introduce the students with the foreign culture, what kind of universities are there or what kind of pattern they have. Their norms and standards will be on par with the Indian institutes, but you don't have to travel straight away to abroad and have to have a lot of money, etc. But you will have exposure from the 100 foreign topmost colleges from abroad. Very important focus that they have given on Sanskrit language. With time, this language has almost gone out of any syllabus. It has gone away from school level or 12th standard, or somehow it has gone far from the education system. And so to bring it back or to make this language as mainstream language, Sanskrit universities will include a multidisciplinary courses, so that people will go into Sanskrit institutes and different courses along with Sanskrit language, and it also will be focused at school level. Institutes like IITs have been instructed in this policy as they should have holistic approach. So what I mean is, at higher education, the education has to be more and more multidisciplinary, so that people will have different types of combination when they are going into entering into different degrees, so that we will have a good choice and then good exposure of all the streams whichever we are interested in. We will not be compartmentalized even at higher degrees or higher education level. NTA, that is National Testing Agencies, are to conduct all types of entrance exams at higher education institutes, which is in a way good, so that if you want to communicate or keep a record, then there will be one regulatory body and the standards will not keep changing from one body to other body. So that's a good thing, I would say. What extra this policy has to give is ways to curb commercialization and corruption in education institutions. So more light that they should give again in this policy, like how to control this particular two problems that the current education system is dealing with. Somehow I feel that they should fix the upper cap of the fees and could allow a legal ways to make profit. Suppose somebody initiates a education institute, suppose I come up with my own education institution, how will I sustain the expenses of building a good college, providing instruments, making labs, giving all the infrastructure, and keep hire teachers, pay them, hire staffs to clean my college or something like that? How will I sustain the expense? So if they allow a legal way to make profit and then keep an upper cap of fees in any course, then I think that will give a justice to a lot of students, because there are different kind of donations that has been taken from the students, and then there is a huge struggle when you want to get a degree, and institute to institute there is huge pattern change in terms of fees, I'm going to say. Also, the education is expected to be not non-profit, not for profit, but again, how will it sustain? That was my question. So they have to also talk about this functioning of educational institutes and controlling the corruption. One way that they have targeted is like particularly recruiting teachers which they have addressed well, so that all the teachers, even if they enter into private or government education institutes and take up teaching profession, they have to take a certain degrees from one particular regulatory body, and then they will be allowed to teach, which is a good thing. And even if you have different skills but you don't have B.Ed degree, you can still get it and you can become teacher of that particular skill, like sports or arts or carpentry, as I said, etc. So that's a good thing which will help to promote skill holding teachers into this teaching field, and there will be little cap on the corruption. But how to stop the commercialization in education, that yet to be clear, and let us hope that this policy will also bring in that change. So thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, like and share our channel.